Yesterday we looked at section 9.1 and we talked about like theoretical probability and experimental probability. And the experimental probability came when you actually went out into the survey. So today in section 9.2, we want to look at what potential problems you could have when you actually go out and do an experimental survey to collect data to answer an experimental probability question. So if you look here, it says, how are statistics such as 4 to 5 dentists recommend whatever brand of gum collected? How do they actually find all this data, and is there a way of doing it properly? So usually they use a survey, and that's usually in the form of a questionnaire. But when you do form a questionnaire, it's very important to follow some guidelines so your results you collect actually represent true opinions. Because if that's the case, then I can just make up some random things and survey some random people and get some weird result. Whether it's valid or true or not is another story. So, how should you go about writing a questionnaire? Well, a questionnaire should contain questions that are fair. You don't want things that are like tilted to one slant. So a question should never influence a person's answer. If it does, we call these questions biased. And each person asked should be able to answer the question. It's no fun when you ask a person to answer and they're like, I don't get what you're answering, or I have no idea. So you want to be able to ask questions that people can actually answer. So, for example, to find out whether your classmates prefer watching reality shows or sitcoms, a student might have asked this: do you like watching hilarious sitcoms, or do you waste your time watching reality shows that are corny? Well, what's the problem with this question here? Well, it is worded in such a way that sitcoms are viewed more favorably over reality shows. So, if you were to ask this question in a survey, I'd say it's biased. The use of language in this question could lead people to give a particular answer, even if it's not their true opinion, because they sense what you want them to say, and they might just say it anyways. So what would be a better question than this? So you could change it like this: do you prefer to watch the following? And you give them choice. Do you want to choose comedy? Or do you want to choose the news? Or actually, in this case, reality TV shows. You can also give more choices like the news. Or you can also give a choice that says other. So here, you don't actually show any bias towards your favorite comedy shows. So, let's look at this next example. Tell me if the following question shows bias. If so, write a better question. So the administrators, that's your VP and the principal, okay? At South, have decided that any student who's found texting during a period will have their cell phone taken away until the end of the day. So, we did a survey done by some Math 9 girls. And they're going to create this survey, and they ask the following question. They say, don't you agree that the new rule is a problem? So, any bias here? How about the don't you agree? And this is a problem. You're already telling them it's a negative state, right? Like, hey, don't you think this is a problem? Like, what are you, like, nuts if you think it's okay? So there's inherent bias here too. You could change it to say something like this: do you agree or disagree with the school's new texting rule? And then people can choose agree, or they can choose disagree. And then after that, you could ask perhaps a question like, explain your choice, so that you can find out more reasons why people surveyed and said agreed or disagreed. So, we've talked about bias in the use of language. Well, what other potential problems can you have when collecting data? Well, yes, a biased question can lead to data collection problems, but there are other factors as well. And I'm going to list them out, and I want you to read this yourself, because this is just all words, and you don't need to hear me saying all these words. But what potential problems could there be? Timing. When you collect data could be a problem. I'll give you some examples. Privacy. People not wanting to share personal information. Could be a problem. Cultural sensitivity. You really shouldn't offend other cultures when you ask a specific type of question. Cost. You can't spend that much money on the survey because you might want to survey a lot of people because you think that's the best way of getting the most accurate data, but you also don't want to spend money doing so. How about time? Yep. Same idea. You might want to survey a lot of people, but you don't want to spend that much time on it because people may not want to do your survey for you. And my last thing here is called ethics. Really, when you collect the data, you can only use it for the purpose that you want to use it for, instead of using other malicious ways. So here's an example of that, and I don't want you to copy that, but hey, ethics is a big concern, especially when you get to university and you do big research projects. You have to clear ethics, because if it's not ethical, you're not doing it. Okay, so looking at these examples now, continuing on, the question is, hey, is there a problem here? And if it is, can you correct it? So read example number 2 yourself, and then see what type of potential problem you see. If you focused on this, the 1-hour survey, you are right. That's taking way too much time. Who wants to do a 1-hour survey? So how could it be corrected? Perhaps you want to reduce the survey to maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Most people don't want to do much longer. I suggest maybe even as grade 9s, you might only want to do like 5 minutes. Okay, how about example number 3? You read that one and you decide what type of potential problem could this one have. If you're thinking about, this is a pretty private question here, I would say correct. Privacy is the big issue here. And so sometimes I think you do want to find out how much people make, but you can't ask specifically how much you make. One way to actually ask that type of question yet not invade people's privacy is to do the following. You can ask, what is your annual income? And I'll say choose one of the following ranges. So the idea is not to ask the specific amount, but give them a range. So you can have a box here that says less than $40,000. You can have a box here that says between, 40,000 and 60,000. Alright, you can have something between 60,000 and 100,000 perhaps. And then you can say, hey, more than 100,000. So here you're still getting an idea of what their household income is, but you're not getting the exact amount. And people might be more willing to share this type of information with you. Okay, read number 4. Well, this one's a little interesting. You're asking government to provide more money for youth activities, and then you're saying, hey, would you support an increase in taxes? I can see that. But to create more skate parks? You're saying only youth like skate parks? That's kind of weird. Okay? So, my issue here is, why is there a connection? So I shouldn't say why is it, I'll say why are youth activities only seen as skate parks? Like, I'm sure youth do much more than just like be under skateboard and skate park. So, very biased question. This is probably in the wording or the use of language. So what can you do instead? Well, I think you're looking at two things here. You might want to ask the first question as, hey, do you actually support an increase in taxes to pay for youth activities? So I would frame it this way. Would you support an increase in taxes to provide more money for youth activities? I think that's a good first question. And then you can say, if yes, like a follow-up question, what types of activities? And I think that's a more accurate or better question. So now you give them some choices, maybe arts, maybe music, maybe sports, I don't know, maybe other, right? That is a much less biased question. All right, got two more on the last page. Go ahead and read, please. How much money do you spend on Christmas holidays? You thought about cultural sensitivity. You are correct, because not everyone celebrates Christmas. So I would first ask, do you celebrate Christmas? Right, that's a yes or no first. Yes, no. And then I'd say, if yes, how much do you spend on presents? Like 0 to, I don't know, $300? Like maybe $300 to $600? Maybe more than $600? You know? So once again, this is a better question to ask. Okay, people don't even need to answer that second part if they don't even celebrate Christmas. Okay, last one here. Surveys conducted to find out which part of a chocolate Easter bunny students eat first. I know what I eat first. The ears. But the following part was asked. Which part of the chocolate Easter bunny do you eat first? The ears, the tails, the foot, or other? Do you see a problem with this survey question? I don't think so. Is there a problem with the cost or time? It's just one question. It's pretty fast, so no. Is there a problem with privacy or cultural sensitivity? And I'll say, yeah, especially with the cultural sensitivity part, because not everyone celebrates Easter. And so how would you avoid this problem? Well, maybe you want to start the survey with one simple question. What do you think the question should be? Yeah, just like the previous example, I'd start the survey with, do you celebrate Easter? Yes or no? And then, if so, you can then go ahead and ask your question. Alright? So I hope this gives you a sample of what type of problems you could encounter. When you do your project, you're going to have to come up with your own questions, and you need to be aware of these potential problems of timing, of privacy, these ones here, right? Timing, privacy, cultural sensitivity, costs, the time of doing the actual survey, and also ethics, and of course the use of the language. Okay? Alright, see you in class.